hope for humanity is that in some way that you can give the people hope that haven't got much hope and success. And when I was in Belize in 2007, and I looked around and I thought to myself, now this is very much like what I went through when I was a kid. Poor people, women having a bunch of little kids and stuff. The men take off because they can't take the responsibility. That's the culture. I learned that, because they live with these women, and like I say, they produce a family, and then it takes too much of their time or whatever to look after them, and they take off, and they start another family someplace. And that's where the poverty comes in, right? But you see, conscience. They don't have that inside. They're good people. But nobody waking that conscience. You've got to have that little policeman telling you that's not right. So that's what I want to go down there for. I want to find that little policeman, and I want to put it into their chest. Hope. So I had an idea. So number one, if you want to change, make a change, you start where it really means something, and that is law enforcement. And I know something about that because I'd served on police commission here, and I have some good friends in the Mounties and so on. I thought to myself, well, I need to go to these guys and find out what I do and what I don't do, because I'm going to get myself into trouble by meaning well and getting chopped up, right? So it just so happened that I needed to register my car. I bought a car. I needed to register my car, and I had to do that in Coruscant, and I didn't know where the registration office was, so I went to the police station. And here is this guy, this young policeman, and he had a bicycle. And I said, talked to him about the registration of my car. And he said, I can take you there. He said, it's out of town a ways. But he said, well, I said, hey, I'll take you there. I'll take you in my car. So we were driving along, and I said, this is a really a strange situation. And he said, what's so strange about it? Well, I said, when I was a kid, I sometimes got a ride in a police car, but I never gave a policeman a ride in my car.
No, me.
He got a kick out of it. And so I thought, well, okay, why are you walking? He said, we don't have a car. Well, I said, what kind of policeman? Well, I said, what if somebody phones you? Break in. This place is 50,000 people, this Coruscant. I said, by the time you guys got down there on a bicycle, Eagle and long gone, right? And he said, yeah, that happens. Because he said, that's why probably we don't get many calls either, because people. So next day I went in, and I said to the commander or the sergeant, I said, look, I said, I'm from Canada, and I told him who I was or what I was all about, and I said, I want to buy you guys a car. But I said, I'm not going to buy a new car, but I said, I buy a good car. So how much does it cost to buy a good car? Well, he figured about 8,000 Belize, which is about 4,000 American. Well, I said, let's say 10. Then you can get yourself a pretty good car. So he said, obviously we have to talk to the chief about that. So we talked to the chief about it, and he was absolutely, and I said, I want you guys to know that there are no strings attached. I said, I'm not buying you a car and then I'll be down there next week and I will need a favor. Right? That's not the way it's going to be. He said, yeah, okay, that's a good plan. So I did. I had transfer made, got him the other thing, funny thing happened. When we were at the bank, and the teller says, where's this money going to? And I thought, well, it goes to the police station, right? But the police captain comes forward and he said, gives him his name. Just make it out to me, he said. Well, I smelled a rat, right? So I let it go. And the policeman went to the station, and I talked to this teller, and I said, what do you think about that? Making that out to him. Well, he said, I can still change it. He said, if you wanted to go to the police station, he said, I can change it. And I said, no. I said, there's something here. I said, I think he's a good guy. So I asked him afterwards, I said, "Do you need to go on a holiday or what?" You know, I just joked. And he took that a little serious. And I said, no, I said, it was a comment. I said, off the cuff. I said, don't worry about it. No, he said, you know what happened, Henry? He said, if he would have put that to the police department, we would have had to do it in the pool. We would have had to throw that money into the pool, regional the police department, and he said, we might have gotten a fraction of it, right? But this way, he said, I can buy the car and use that car for our purpose right here. I said, well, I knew that it was something better than you know, but in my head first. But you know, that's how I am, you know, because of my past. It's very hard for people to lie to me because their eyes tell me more than their mouth. When somebody comes in here in the summertime and wears sunglasses, I just as soon take them off and say, let's talk. Anyway, so that's what happened. So I have a good grounding. And you know, they gave me a very nice plaque. When I left there, and I should show that to you, they gave me a very nice plaque of appreciation for making their police department better